we're here at the BP Pulse stand at the Melbourne EV Show 2023, joined by Andrew from BP Pulse. Thank you, Andrew, for your time.
No problem, Sean.
So BP, name synonymous with petrol.
Yes.
Talk to us a bit about BP Pulse and the plans there.
Sure, yeah. So BP Pulse is a global brand that's been around for globally about 2 years now, but BP has been involved in EV charging since its acquisition of the CHAdeMO business in the UK in 2018, and the CHAdeMO business is about 10 years old.
Yep.
So the BP Pulse business entered Australia and New Zealand. We operate the business as one sort of network across Australia and New Zealand in October last year.
Yep.
We've now got 196 charge points live across Australia and New Zealand. And coincidentally, it's evenly split in Australia and New Zealand at the moment. So we're live across about 45 locations in each country. Some sites are multi-charger sites, so some have got 2 charge points, some have got 4 charge points.
Yep.
And the network's growing at a pretty rapid pace, so we're just sort of finalising our first phase of rollout and kicking off our second phase of rollout sort of in the fourth quarter this year.
Okay, and if we looked ahead 2-3 years, is there sort of a vision of how big it might be?
Yeah, pretty ambitious targets. So towards the end of next year, across Australia and New Zealand, sort of the 500-600 charge point mark, and then doubling that again by the end of 2025.
Well,
so
that's a big
pretty big network, and ambition sort of across our company-owned and dealership retail fuel business network, and beyond that as well. So, you know, some network beyond the traditional fuel network.
So not
as well.
just at the BP sites, starting to build it out.
Which you'll see that in other parts of the BP Pulse network around the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've gone with the fast chargers from Tritium. Is that the plan going forward? Always fast charger network, not so much slow charging.
Yeah, ultra fast. Not so much AC charging. I mean, there'll be a place for some AC charging in our network, but at the moment the focus has been absolutely in rapid charging, and you'll see our network later this year and early next year move into ultra fast, 150s and beyond, pretty soon in the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
It's very good.
Yep.
Now I think for Victoria, since we're in Melbourne, Glenrowan just opened up both sides of Hume Highway there.
That's right. Yep.
What can people expect at that site?
Yeah, so Glenrowan's pretty typical of what one of our phase 2 locations will look like. So that'll be a fairly standard highway format site. So at least 4 charge points at each highway location. Many of our other sites like that, you may even see 6 charge points, so at least 2 or 3 chargers that can handle 2 vehicles at a time. Those chargers in particular can output up to 100 kilowatts each. So those locations there can output sort of 200 kilowatts per site. And so later in our phase 2, you'll see some sort of chargers at 150 and above, potentially up to 300 kilowatts. So that'll be sort of the standard format and the standard archetype that you'll see rolling out in our network, sort of from Q4 this year and beyond.
Yep, and will the sites tend to be CHAdeMO with CCS2, or as you move on to the more CCS2 only?
Yeah, CHAdeMO will be, and I know this isn't going to be great news to CHAdeMO customers, people that have got CHAdeMO vehicles, but it is the reality is it's a very small demand. So we're trying to cater for where the demand is.
Yep.
And so when we do put CHAdeMO connectors out in the marketplace, we do keep that sort of, the reality is 2 to 3% of the market happy.
Yep.
But when we put a dual CCS unit, we're keeping 97% of the market happy.
Yep.
So it's really it's a pretty easy equation for us. Yep. We're not putting 0 CHAdeMO units on the ground, but we are trying to spread them evenly, and we're trying to put them in places where it makes sense for CHAdeMO users.
Probably more in a city, probably.
Yeah, we are. We're sort of trying to spread them because there is a bit of an argument for both, right? People say the CHAdeMO vehicles that have got shorter range, people that drive CHAdeMO vehicles will say, I need the range on the highway, and then other CHAdeMO owners will say, I don't really take my CHAdeMO vehicle on the highway. So it's different people, horses for courses.
Yep.
So the Glenrowan site, for example, we made sure that across those 8 charge points in that location, across 2 sites, we've got at least 1 CHAdeMO cable there. There's not 1 on each side of the highway, but at least on that location, if you've got it, and it's easy to cross the highway in that location. So, but the reality is, across our network, we're seeing CHAdeMO demand at 1 or 2% of the charge sessions.
Yeah.
So
Less
it doesn't make a lot of sense for it to make up 50% of the charge points.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when it is a CCS2 only unit, is that a split load? So 150 max with one charger, or 150 if both are in use?
Yeah. So the charger output is the maximum output for the charger unit.
Yep.
Yeah. So as soon as you've got a second vehicle plugging in, it will split.
Yep.
The way that these particular units work, they've got 50 kilowatt power units.
Yep.
So they'll generally, well, not generally, but they'll split the power unit basically in 50 kilowatt increments.
Okay. Yep. No, well, I think any other messages you have for the BP Pulse network?
No, I think stick with the rollout. You know, register interest on our website. The network is growing at a fairly rapid pace. We have got a really ambitious target. We do want to be the biggest and most reliable network in the country. And for New Zealand, anyone who's following in New Zealand. So we just launched our BP Charge brand over there. We don't use the Pulse brand in New Zealand. There is another Pulse brand in New Zealand, so we couldn't get the Pulse brand in market in New Zealand, but BP Charge is the BP charging brand in New Zealand. So follow the brand. The network's going to be big. We're taking it really, really seriously. You only have to look at our networks in Europe to see how seriously BP is taking EV charging.
Yeah.
You know, so take our network seriously. And you know, the big ambition for us is really reliability and availability. So you know, stick with us. And
I think that's got to be for everyone. No, well,
absolutely.
thank you. It's a real vital part of the structure. It's also going to tend to be in locations people are used to, being petrol sites. As we can see here today, I think EV adoption's about to really take off. The interest is growing, and places like BP Pulse will be a vital part of that. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, Sean.
Thanks.
Cheers.